there's been 2 games since we last talked and did our Wembanyama Summer League recap, which was essentially a recap of the first 2 games of Summer League in Vegas. And since then, the Spurs played the Wizards. I know you got to catch a little bit, at least to the first half of that game, and that kind of worked out because I didn't see the first half, but I did get to catch a good bit of the second half of that game. So just give me your overall thoughts on that one. Obviously, a good game from Barlow and an awesome bounce back performance from Malachi. But other than that, what were just your overall thoughts?
First half was competitive. Without Wembanyama, it kind of went back to regularly scheduled programming with, ball movement between Malachi, Champagnie, and Blake for the most part, and then everyone else kind of being glue guys. But Barlow, I didn't mention his name in that first statement because he really gets his points. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it doesn't feel like any of these plays are drawn up for him to get baskets in a
Yeah.
way. He just kind of ends up with the ball and takes advantage of the opportunity. And it's crazy to think about because it's not like he's getting like Drew Eubanks like putback dunks or like
Right.
aggressive fights for the offensive boards, puts it back. Like he gets those too, but he's also been able to create for himself,
Mm-hmm.
which has been a welcome surprise. And I'm glad that it wasn't just a one and done thing because I know he did that in game 1, but it's been consistent. And if you really want to, you can say Barlow's been the most consistent guy the entire time.
Exactly my thoughts, Ethan, which is, not something I would have thought I'd be saying at this point. Now, this will be the 6th game that they've played in total if you count the California Classic,
Yeah.
if I'm doing my math right. And that if you would have told me before the California Classic, 6 games in, you and Ethan will both be agreeing that it's probably Barlow who's been the most consistent. I would have honestly been shocked.
Yeah, and he had one bad game, I think, or not bad game, but he had like 6 points, and it was
Right.
like, oh, what happened? But
6 assists, 6 boards. Yeah.
yeah, but it was an all around game. But for him to continue to create his shot, not only inside but from the mid range area, and play make well for others, and just be an energy guy on offense and defense. Like I've been very impressed with his progression from last year to this year because last year was at times difficult to watch.
Yeah.
And I know he kind of finished the season strong, but we were kind of tanking, and so were other teams. So it's like,
His
oh,
best game
what
was
was
that
it?
last game against Dallas,
Where he
which
had 20 and
still
20.
and that was when the Mavericks were tanking, and that's why they ended up
Yeah,
getting fined for that game, literally.
literally.
So, anyways, back to what you were saying.
No, I mean, that was pretty much it on Barlow's. Extremely impressed with him. I hope his progression continues. I'm sure he'll split time between Austin and San
On
Antonio
the
next
two-way.
season. So I'm looking forward to watching him dominate in Austin because I think he's really progressed in a lot of different areas. So I'm excited to see what he's able to do. I thought Blake had a nice game. Malachi obviously went crazy. I mean, 29 points on 12 for 20 shooting. Like this is what we
5 for
expected from
6 from
Malachi.
3.
That game with Wemby was just an absolute fluke, and I think he was frustrated in his head, and his shot was just off. This game against the Wizards was regular scheduled programming for Malaki Branham. That's what we can expect moving forward. Just a shot maker and a big shot taker. And Champagnie, and you mentioned this, I think 2 pre-games ago or 2 post-games ago, talking about Champagnie where he was 4 for 13, so his shot wasn't exactly landing every single time, but he found other ways to contribute. He had a
Yeah.
plus 17 in the box score, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, just an all-around great game
And got to the
from
line
Champagnie.
a bunch as well. It was 8
8
of
for 9.
9. Yep.
Yeah, so really impressed with him. Don't just look at his field goal percentage and say he had a bad game because he had a very productive game. And really from the whole team, there's not much to go on because it was a pretty competitive game from start to end. But I'm glad that we were able to kind of brush off what we were doing prior to Wemby's performance and just kind of get back to what we were doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of covered a lot of my thoughts there, but just going back to Malachi, because obviously there was a lot of talk about him after the second Wembanyama game.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we said in that podcast, I even said I was like, I'm not really too worried about him and
Mhm.
Champagnie because the other factor is once again I'll repeat it. These guys have been told like just go
Mhm.
shoot, go get a bucket, go
Yep.
like they've been basically like instilling like a Kobe like mentality in them. And I know that's an exaggeration, but y'all get what I'm saying. They're like, just go take whatever shot you want this season because they were just trying to evaluate the guys and see what they had, you know. And so when you throw in a star like Victor Wembanyama, they're still playing under that mentality. And that's not the mentality that you're going to play under, which is why I said it's a big learning lesson. But I think the key here is in the games that he hasn't played with Victor Wembanyama, which there is still going to be that adjustment. It's not something that you want to completely ignore. I mean, when he is the main initiator on the summer league offense, he's basically had 230 pieces. He had 32 in the other game, which was on 50% shooting from the field and from three in the second California Classic game. And then tonight, 5 for 6 from three, or not tonight, excuse me, against the Wizards, 5 for 6 from three, like I said. And then also, I'm forgetting the overall number here, but 12 for 20, like you said, 60%. I mean, efficient, 29 points, and just was a bucket getter. The interesting thing is missed both of his free throws, and that kind of happened in the Victor game too.
Yeah.
I'm obviously not worried about that from what we saw last season, but he'll get better from that. But the point is with these two performances, Ethan, the Spurs announced that they were going to shut him down for the rest of Summer League. They had seen enough, just like in Victor's second game, they had seen enough. And yeah, it was those two performances with almost 30 points from Malachi where he just showcased all of the stuff that we talked about. He's just gotten even more consistent, excluding the Wemby game, whenever it comes to executing after getting to his spots.
Yeah, which really, I'm looking forward to seeing what he could do as that sixth man role, because he's going to come in and basically that's what his role is going to be. He's come in off the bench and get buckets, and that's obviously where he's most comfortable. So, crap. I mean, he might have one of those seasons where it's like 6th man of the year type candidacy if he can continue at this rate.
That would be a big jump, but you never know. You never know. Especially we'll see how this season goes. But it is very positive signs from Malachi, other than the Wemby game, obviously. But like we're saying, with these other two, I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah,
but talking about some other guys as well, Ethan. We touched on Champagnie. We kind of touched on all the guys now that I'm thinking about it, because we talked about Barlow, obviously 20-7, the consistency thing that's been really good to see. And even in the games where Champagnie shot bad, other than the game where everybody played bad, which was once again the second Wembanyama game, he's found a way to get at least, close to 20 points basically every game. And in the first Wembanyama game, he had 20 points on a little bit better shooting than what he had last night. He's just continued to show different levels of his game. I'm glad I started talking about this because, one, there's the poster in the Charlotte game.
Yeah.
I know it's Summer League. That's the asterisk with all of this, but still, that's something that I had not seen from him yet. Also, the two little saucy layups at the end of the Wizards game as well. I don't know. Well, you weren't watching that. I did see that. And Wembanyama was kind of clapping about both of them. It was on back-to-back possessions. I believe he might have even got a steal on those possessions as well. Well, they don't have that in the stat sheet, so that's not what happened. Excuse me. Yeah, but still two nice little layups there in the fourth quarter. And so for him to recover after also he was able to get to the line throughout it, like we mentioned, which is good to see, but was able to get some buckets late after struggling to shoot the whole game. And that's really what you want to see as well in those clutch moments. So love to see that from Julian.
Yeah, my perspective has completely changed about Julian. Like, going into Summer League, I was like, okay, for the Spurs next season, he'll be off the bench splitting minutes with Doug as a shooter. He will be a 3-and-D shooter. And now, after seeing these couple of games here in the Summer League, he's still probably going to be predominantly a 3-and-D shooter.
Right.
But he can also, he's a basketball player. He can play make. He can put the ball on the floor. Like, he has other skill sets that I just never had seen, and probably nobody had seen because he was just riding the bench in, where was he before, Philly?
Mm-hmm.
Philly. So,
well, he wasn't even really on the team. He was. I don't even know if he was on a two-way. I think he was just on their G League team.
We gave him an opportunity, and he has embraced it. And his confidence is oozing right now. So I'm looking forward to see what he can do next year. You mentioned him being possibly the backup 4 next to Doug at the backup 3. I'm liking that. And if he gets beat out size-wise, guess who we also have?
Charles
Dominick
Bassey.
Barlow.
Oh, there you go. Oh, well, that's true. That's true. And we're forgetting Sandro as well in all of this as well.
And Chetty Osman.
Oh yeah, and we're gonna get to the rest of the dudes that we've added to the roster. But just getting back to Julian a little bit, the stuff that he's shown that we hadn't seen, showing that there's more to his game. That is kind of, you're seeing why the Spurs gave him a 4-year contract the way that they did. And why it's kind of going to be tough for these new guys, or, if multiple of them want to get on the roster, they're going to probably have to beat him out, which I just feel like it's unlikely that they're going to let go of Champagnie or Charles Bassey when you give them 4-year contracts. I know there's technically on the Bassey deal, like the last 2 are team options, but you're not giving these guys these long-term deals if you don't believe in them. And considering the development that we've seen from both of those guys, I definitely feel confident in them being on the roster and winning in training camp, but you never know.